Good morning, I'm Chris Baker with syracuse.com and the Post-Standard. I'm here this morning with Juanita Perez Williams, who's running for Congress in the 24th Congressional District in central New York. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes or so asking Juanita questions that have been submitted by readers. We've gotten a bunch of questions, maybe 15 or so, from readers over the last few days. We'll be streaming this interview live on Facebook as well as on syracuse.com. So if you have questions you'd like to ask as we go, feel free to add them in the comments. We will do our best to get to as many as possible. We won't get to all of them, but we'll try our best. A few things before we get started. Juanita's running in a primary campaign for the Democratic nomination. She's running against Dana Balter. The election is 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today,
Tuesday,
June 26th.
June 26th.
Yes.
The winner of that race will face John Catco in the November race for the 24th district. So I think that's all my detailed talking points to get through.
Great.
So we'll just dive into some questions. Like I said, if you have a question as we go, feel free to ask it on Facebook in the comments, and I'll do my best to get to as many of those as we can. So our first question comes from Dave Paninsky, who submitted this a few days ago. Dave says, please tell us about your decision to enter this race after initially saying you were not interested.
Great. No, we came off of a long mayor's race, and quite frankly, it was something that I just couldn't jump right into, Dave, and I thank you for the question. I realized there was a process, and I certainly respect that process, but for me, it was about getting back to work. I have kids in college. I needed to really figure out what I could do moving forward, and had decided that perhaps I would move forward and just really just get my life back. But standing on the sidelines is just not what I do best. As I watched this particular race unfold, I became frustrated because we can win this year, and there's so much at stake. So I decided the details were important. Talked to the kids and said, this is bigger than us. We need to jump in. We need to make sure we win. We need to beat John Catco in November, and we need to stand up to Donald Trump. So I decided to get in, and while I regret some of the tension, I'm certainly not sorry for doing it, because people are more engaged, people are talking more about this race, and that's what we want. We want national attention putting this race on the radar.
Well, we've certainly seen national attention. New York Times has written about this, Politico. This race has generated some interest. Dave had a second piece of that question. He said he wants to know if you were pushed at all by the Democratic Party in Washington, D.C. to jump into this race.
I wanted national attention for this race. We need it. We need it to win. And I was getting support at the local level and the state and federal level. But this was my decision, Dave. I had to decide myself. And I'm excited to announce that we became a red to blue district after I got in. That's what I wanted. I wanted that national attention. And from that, I've received national endorsements. I have Vote Vets behind me, the Congressional Black Caucus, Bold PAC, which supports Hispanic congressional candidates, and the Latino Victory Fund. This is the national attention that I wanted to bring to the race. I don't report to the D-Trip. I'm certainly running this campaign myself. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the local efforts. But this was my decision to make.
D-Trip obviously being the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee.
Yes.
I've got all my C's in the right order there.
Yes.
You mentioned red to blue district. Can you just explain what you mean by that, what that is?
What it means is that there are many districts with races this year, and what we want to do is make sure that our race is one of the ones put on the radar that gets national attention, because then when money goes into the system and people are contributing to beat Donald Trump, our district gets some of that funding. And so red to blue means that this district is now on the radar, and when people throughout the country contribute to the Democratic National Party, that money comes into our district. We are a battle station now. I'm proud of that. And we will have the resources and the funding to beat John Catco in November because of the red to blue status.
All right. We'll talk a little bit more about funding. We had a question later on that I'll get to, but kind of switching gears here. This one comes from Mark Vineski, and he's asked this question of both candidates, but he said, if elected, would you vote to impeach Donald Trump?
I'm a prior assistant attorney general, and while I think Donald Trump is a complete train wreck and has caused his own problems, I would like to see the Mueller investigation unfold unimpeded. We need to ensure that we respect this investigation, and until it is in completion, I think it's premature to talk about that.
Okay. Is there anything specifically you'd like to see out of the Mueller investigation? I mean, just let it run its entire course?
Well, I think we're already seeing who was involved, and quite frankly, our questions are being answered that Donald Trump has created his own problems, and at the end will be found to be responsible for much of the shenanigans happening in this particular past election. But again, I think we jumped the gun. We should let the investigation unfold, and from there, we come together as a country and decide what we need to do.
All right. Another potential political question. This one comes from Joe Kalinske in Manlius. He says, would you vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker of the House if you're elected to Congress and Democrats take the House?
Joe, I am focusing on my race right now. I want to make sure we win, that Democrats win, and that's where I think we need to be. But, I'm going to vote for a leader that puts Central New York first. We need to ensure that the best interest of our citizens in this district are a priority. So that's the leader I'll vote for. I don't know who's running. So when I know who's running, I'll make sure that I listen to the people of Central New York and decide what we need to do.
Have you had any contact with Nancy Pelosi? I know she was a little bit involved with this race at the end of last year and the beginning of this year.
As a red to blue candidate, I get to meet a lot of congressmen and women, and I've enjoyed meeting many of them. So I have had interactions. I'm proud to say that we have met many of the leaders in Congress, and so that's part of being on the national radar. We get to get firsthand knowledge of what's happening and what needs to be done, and where our place will be when we're in the House.
All right. Next question. This comes from Donna DiTullio in Syracuse. She says, in one of your mailers on the timeline, there's an event that said you stood up against Pataki for illegally taking jobs away. You and I talked about this a little bit during the election last year. She wants to know, can you tell us more about this interaction with Pataki?
Right. I belong to a union, the Public Employees Federation. I'm very proud of that particular status. But early on in my career here in New York, with babies in tow, I confronted Governor Pataki when he determined early on his first term that he was going to let go of many state employees. I stood up to him. I discussed with him why his reasoning for that would hurt Central New York. And I received attention not only from the union but statewide, because that's what we needed to do. We needed to stand up to him, not as just a union, but as state employees and as hardworking men and women. And we won that fight, and it really, for me, became an opportunity to get engaged in the community. So I'm very proud of it.
Was that your first kind of foray into, I wouldn't call it politics necessarily, but activism maybe?
That was part of it. I've been active. My parents were both big union leaders. I've been active in unions and activities for communities since I was very young. But I was proud of this one because this meant really taking on leadership that pushed back, but I was learning how to be the stronger victor.
All right. And somewhere, I think you told me last year that somewhere there's a photo from our archives of you.
There is.
Talking with a stack full of papers.
There is.
You can find that.
In fact, they followed me home, and they took pictures of me and my kids, and it was great. I was proud that as a working mom that I demonstrated no matter who we are, no matter where we come from, we should stand up.
All right. We'll keep moving on. This one is from Donna Timmons in Mattydale. She says, do you support fully repealing the tax plan recently passed by the GOP? Absolutely.
It's a scam, and it really equates to corporate welfare. And I'm not going to stand for it. It's going to hurt the hardworking men and women of this district and of this country, and we need to ensure that it's repealed, and that'll be one of my priorities. We need to provide real tax relief for the people of this country, and we don't do it by trickle-down economics. It didn't work before, and it won't work now, and we need to stand up to it.
What does that look like, real tax relief, policy-wise?
Well, we need to ensure that, first of all, corporations are paying their fair share. Again, we know that there has never been a time in our history where when we gave everything to big corporations and we sold out to them that they actually give back. They don't do that. So real tax relief looks like making the hardworking men and women of this country the priority. Making sure that we're providing relief where they can save for their future and where they can have a secure economy that takes care of them, provides them with good jobs, good wages. We need to ensure funding flows to the hardworking men and women, not to corporations.
All right. This one came from an email, and I don't have the name, but you just jogged my memory on it. Someone wanted to know what you would do specifically to bring jobs to Central New York, because Central New York has struggled to create jobs and improve its economy lately.
Right. Well, many of you may know I've been doing this. I've been the regional director for the Department of Labor for over 5 years now, and very proudly know this district and know what innovation has been occurring, and I'm proud of that. But at the end of the day, we need to focus on manufacturing jobs and businesses that are already here. There's no one-size-fits-all in bringing investment into our district. People talk about manufacturing. I'm proud of the fact that there are 45,000 people in this district that are working in manufacturing. We need to help small business. We need to help manufacturers that are here already in our district that can grow their businesses globally. Many of them are trying to do it. They need assistance. Then they, in turn, provide jobs for people in the community, and we ensure that we help them by enforcing that federal funding is coming down for training, building skill sets, matching people up with jobs. I think the answer is here, and we need to look at the fact that people in this community have businesses and have organizations where if they received assistance from the federal government, a real congressperson that stands up to make sure that money's coming here, we could create many jobs in the community.
All right. Just some example. I mean, you're talking about manufacturing a lot. Are there any specific manufacturers or companies that you look for that you think need more help from, or you've heard need more help from the federal government?
Well, I think we need to look at our history, and I know many are doing that. So I'm really talking about what many are trying to do. We have a history of coolants, of working on coolants, right? Carrier air conditioning in this community. And even though they left behind very quality engineers and folks who are working in this business and can take that trade to another level. There are those that say geothermal energy is a mecca that could be actually built here based on all of that history that we have and quality engineering that we have in the area. So that's just one component. We make things in this district that build products all over the world. We need to be telling that story. We need to be letting folks know this is where innovation begins. And I believe if we tell that story right, if we bring resources at the federal level, we'll be able to build our economy exactly with what's already here and create jobs.
All right. Just a reminder, we're here. We're about 15 minutes into a Q&A live with Juanita Perez Williams, who's running for Congress in the 24th District as a Democrat. If you've got questions, we've got plenty of them flooding in, but keep asking, and we're going to do our best to get to as many of them as we can. So I'll shut up. We'll keep going. This one comes from Kyle Paulina. Kyle, I hope I'm saying that right. Kyle's asking about net neutrality. He says, what would you do to ensure and secure net neutrality?
Well, it's a shame. As you know, yesterday was the deadline, and of course, no one in our district at the congressional level stood up for us. We need to stand up for a free and open internet. It's essential. And to sell out to corporations and telecom, frankly, is such a disservice to this country. What I want to see is that we go back to the Obama administration's policies behind the FCC and stand up, not just for free and open internets, but for our privacy rights. John Catco has handed over all of our public information to telecom and to organizations that just sell our information. That's a disgrace. He has collected thousands of dollars for his own campaign from organizations like telecom. He can't be our voice. We need to have someone who stands up, ensures that the internet is open and free to everyone and accessible, and to ensure that our privacy is safeguarded.
So you mentioned that yesterday was the deadline for
Yes.
the repeal of net neutrality. So what does it look like going forward? I mean, we saw Republicans spend a couple of years trying to repeal Obamacare unsuccessfully. Would this be a similar effort, or what would you do to undo what's happening currently with net neutrality?
Well, first of all, we need to stand up. That's why I'm in this race. My hope is that we can flip the House and get a majority of Democrats who understand what impact this will have on our country. And so that's my first goal, is to make sure that we win. But then we need to stand up, and we need to push back on this administration, their recklessness, their selling out to big corporations. We need to stand up against that.
We'll shift gears again here. This next question we got from two different people in similar forms. One is Pete Worth in Fayetteville. The other is Joseph Favada in Syracuse. You say increasingly more states across the country are legalizing marijuana. Where do you stand on the issue of legalizing marijuana, and what measures would you support?
That's a very good question. Our policies for marijuana are continuing to hurt our economy and to hurting people of color throughout this country with incarceration. It's unfair, and I would like to see marijuana at the federal level not only legalized for health issues, but also legalized for private use. We need to have a policy that protects those who have been incarcerated. We need to have a policy that focuses on the opiate heroin epidemic, and we need to have a policy that grows our economy. We can see that this could create jobs and investment. So I want to see marijuana legalized, not just for health care related issues, but also for private use.
And we're talking at the federal level?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. I'm scrolling through. We got a whole bunch of questions coming in right now. This one comes from M.W. Smith, who says, if you beat Catco, would you advocate stronger support for sexual harassment policies in Congress to protect federal workers?
Certainly. I mean, I have done that my entire life. When I was in the United States Navy, there were many issues involving sexual harassment, and I stood up to that. I continue to do that in my endeavors now. We have gender inequality in this country, and it's growing worse with this administration and their attack on women. I'm going to focus on equal pay for equal work for women. I'm going to focus on the fact that in New York State, women still get paid 80 cents on the dollar. Women need to be a priority. Women need to be supported, and I'm going to make sure that I'm in the forefront of that.
Okay. Are there any specific policies that you've seen that you think you would push or advocate for, or anything that, specifically you say, let's get behind this and let's change this specifically?
Well, I was one of the voices in Governor Cuomo's gender equality plan. I've been doing that for a number of years, ensuring that we're focusing on not just pay discrimination, housing discrimination. We're supporting choice. We're supporting access to good reproductive health care for women. We're not letting this administration eliminate the health care for women. Women need access in all places, and I'm going to start with ensuring that whenever a woman needs access to any of these sources, that I'm in the forefront and I'm making sure we have policy that supports it.
All right, this kind of next question kind of piggybacks off that. We got this from both Cynthia Parsi and Jean Tonelli in Fayetteville. They said, in the past you've expressed some pro-life sentiments. How can we ensure you'll protect a woman's right to choose if elected?
I firmly believe in a woman's right to choose. I'm a mother of 4 grown children. I'm a grandmother. And I know that good reproductive health care for women, especially those that are most vulnerable, is essential. So I'm always going to support choice. I will always vote for choice. And I'm going to ensure that organizations like Planned Parenthood and the Syracuse Community Health Center are afforded the funding to take care of poor and vulnerable women. We need to do that. We need to have someone in this district stand up for women's rights, women's choice, and I intend to do that as a congresswoman.
All right. Next question comes from Andre Young, who wants to talk about something that came up last year. The 81 corridor, been a topic that's been brought up again and again. Most likely it will cost billions of dollars to fix. How do you expect to support this project at the federal level? How do you expect to procure funding, and which option do you support for that?
This is one of the things we talked about, and it was frustrating to me. And at the end of the day, everyone pretty much conceded that because the federal government is paying for most of this project, we have to have someone at the federal level standing up for us, talking about what's the best project to be implemented in the city of Syracuse. And so it's one of the reasons I jumped in. We don't have a voice. We don't have someone who's doing that. And I want to make sure that before the federal government starts spending a dime, we're talking about jobs. We're talking about an investment that actually supports the entire community and a plan that works not only for the city, but for the entire district.
Is there a plan? I'm sorry, I was reading some other questions and maybe I missed this. Is there a particular option 481 replacement that you support over the others?
I'm talking to groups about what's important. I focused a lot on the grid. I think the grid truly helps the city of Syracuse. But again, I'm also listening to those around the district. I think that's what a leader should do in this position before you stand up and talk to those that can make the difference at the federal level. So I'll ensure that I'm listening to the voices. I know a lot about the grid. I think the grid could work. But I'm willing to listen to more of the folks around the district and what they think about the best plan for the city and the district.
All right. Changing gears again, this is another question from Donna DeTulio in Syracuse. Mm-hmm. She says, you're a former JAG officer. What from this experience helps you define why you can be a better candidate for Congress?
I'm very proud of my military service. In the military, you truly have to learn to work across the aisle. It's not about your party affiliation. It's not about whether you come from a particular community. It's really, we all come together. We have one mission. And so I've learned to work in very diverse communities with all different types of people, and I've been successful at it. And so I will take this particular leadership, bring it into Congress, where I'm proud to say there are a number of military vets running for office, and a number of women, which I'm very proud to be a part of, and we'll stand up. We'll stand up with our experience in the military. We'll stand up against Donald Trump, and we'll make sure that we are at the forefront of a number of issues that are impacting our country.
There's been, the VA has been in the news a lot lately for mismanagement at the top. Is there anything in particular you see that needs to be changed within the VA? Or anything that needs to be done with funding regarding the VA?
We need to make sure that it's accessible to all veterans. We promise that with our military members. We promise them the ability to have health care for the remaining time of their life and some of their families. And so we need to fulfill that promise. We are very lucky here in our area to have one of the best VAs in the United States. I'd like to use that as a model. I think it would be a great example for the rest of the country, how we service everyone in this district, how we work with other organizations to ensure that we're providing resources. I'm a proud member of the American Legion, proud member of Clear Path for Veterans, and this is what we do. We work with veterans, especially those coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, to make sure that they have the resources that we need. With that experience, I'll pay attention to what's happening at the VA level.
We'll change gears again here. This one comes from Maureen Quigley. It just came in on, I think this is from Facebook. Maureen wants to know, can you give us your thoughts regarding the atrocities happening with many immigrants here in central New York?
Yeah, this is an issue that's very close to home for me. I am very concerned on what we are doing with our really broken immigration system. We need reform. We need to start focusing on the fact that we are breaking up families. We are behaving in very inhumane ways, and I want to see, a focus on embracing immigrants in this community and making sure that they know that they're safe, and that we're not going to be a community that hunts them down. I grew up on the border of San Diego and Tijuana, and my father would walk us to the school bus when I was a little girl, and he'd get harassed by the Border Patrol. And he's an American citizen, but it was this power that they had that was, really used recklessly. And I remember my father having to show his ID and having his children watch him do that. And that's just a little bit of what people are experiencing now. And knowing how that felt for me, I can imagine how people are feeling about having children torn apart from their families, fathers and mothers removed. We made a promise to our dreamers. We made a promise to those who came fleeing harm's way that we would protect them and we would create a pathway. We need to do that. We need to create citizenship for dreamers. We need to codify DACA, ensure that we're taking care of those that have been here, being productive, paying their taxes, staying out of trouble. We need to fulfill that promise. That's what we're built on. We're built on a community of immigrants. And I'm going to make a priority real immigration reform and the type of reform that's ensuring that we're taking care of those that have been here, doing the right things, and creating a pathway for citizenship.
In the short term, is there anything that can be done in this district? We've seen a number of people who have been in this country for a long time who, like you said, are paying taxes and have been working with ICE or Border Patrol. who are now being deported after however many years. Is there anything in the short term that can be done? I mean, there's policies in the long term that can change immigration status and some of the policies we have.
Right.
But for now, for people who are being deported yesterday, today, tomorrow, is there anything that can be done to stimulate that, to slow down?
Right. No, you're right. I mean, I just had someone that I knew deported, and it broke my heart. He's been here almost 20 years, had a wife and kids, and was deported back to Guatemala, where he hasn't been for many, many years, and he fled that country. And, we need a representative that stands up to this. It's not just the immigrants. The farmers are looking for someone to stand up for them. These are their families. These are their employees that have been with them for years. I spoke with the Dairy Farmers Association the other day, and it's a priority for them. It has this chilling impact, not just on undocumented people, but documented people who are afraid to be deported, afraid to be harassed. So they're not leaving their workplaces. They're not coming out talking about domestic violence. They're not taking their kids to the emergency room. They're not even taking their kids to school. I mean, it has a chilling impact. So in the short term, we need a representative that stands up, that's talking back to Donald Trump and saying, this is wrong, this is inhumane, and we're not going to tolerate it in Central New York. We're going to stand up to it. We're going to meet it at where it starts. All you have to do is spend an evening at the train station or the bus station. It's happening every day. Americans, students who are here, attending Syracuse University, who happen to be diverse, are being asked by ICE for their ID and asked questions about their citizenship. That's deplorable. We need to be better than that, and we need to have a representative that's standing up to that.
You mentioned domestic violence in there. I think it was either yesterday or the day before. The Attorney General came out and said that domestic violence or domestic issues are not cause for asylum. Is that something you agree with?
No, I don't agree with that. I mean, again, we're not built on that. My grandparents were immigrants, and they came because of war. And, we need to understand that has always been our story as a country. Our doors open to those fleeing from many countries around the world for many, many years. And for us to now to start to define what that looks like, it's unacceptable. And we need strong people to stand up to that. And we need really a force. And that's why I'm in this, because I believe that if we all come together and we vote and we flip the House, we're going to be able to have policies that push back on this.
All right. We'll change gears, but just a reminder, we're about 30 minutes or so in. We're here with Juanita Perez Williams, who's running for Congress in the 24th District as a Democrat. There's a primary election 2 weeks from today, Tuesday, June 26th, and it is open to all Democrats in the district. We're taking questions from Facebook and also pre-submitted questions, so if you've got something you'd like to ask as we go, please ask your question on Facebook in the comments, and we'll do our best to get to it. We've got a few more we're going to get to. So we'll change gears to healthcare. This next one comes from Ursula Rosum, and she says the health insurance companies just requested rate hikes for 2019, a 24% rate increase on average. If elected, would you fight to end this, and would you support legislation to guarantee that everyone can get quality, affordable health care regardless of age, income level, immigration status, or where they work?
Absolutely, Ursula. That's why I'm doing this. Healthcare is a right, and we need to stand up to ensure that every American, no matter where they come from, have access to good, affordable, quality health care. The Affordable Care Act has allowed millions of people, and many with pre-existing conditions, to have good access to comprehensive health care. And Donald Trump and this Republican Congress are trying to undermine and repeal that with nothing in its place. We need to stop that. We need to ensure that, in fact, they are pushed back. That's why I'm running for office. But we also know the ACA isn't perfect. We know that there are many people, like you're talking about, that can't afford their premiums. Many people my age have a difficult time with that. We know there are a lot of seniors that are still having to choose between paying for their prescription cost and groceries. I have a mother who's dependent on this, and she has a very small pension, and I'm concerned about that. So I want to safeguard the ACA, all that we have gained, but then I want to make the transition to universal health care, access to health care, good quality health care for all, no matter where you come from, no matter whether you're eligible for Medicare or Medicaid. We need to stand up, and we need to finally have a national policy where all have access to good health care. When I was in the military, I was part of a single-payer policy. And it's not perfect, but it worked. And I'm proud to say that I utilized it to give birth to 2 children. So I know that it can work, and I want to start there. I want to start where we know systems are in place that work. And then we grow from there. I'd like to see Medicare for all. I'd like to see it start where anyone who's not eligible can be able to buy into it. It's a great plan for employers. And the more that buy into it, as you know, premiums go down. And then we transition to a place where all can be all can have access to good universal health care.
Right, we just answered the follow-up piece of Ursula's question, which was, do you support Medicare for all? So we'll move on to the next question. From Nicholas Gaudreau, and this is, Nicholas says, during Ms. Balter's town hall, she said that her focus regarding drug enforcement would be dealers and not users. Do you believe that goal unfairly targets black and brown people, and how would you choose to address drug enforcement?
Well, I've done this. I used to be a prosecutor in my early days, and I do not like mandated sentencing. It's wrong, and we need to look at these cases on a case-by-case basis. Too many people of color and those who are poor are incarcerated for very minor offenses, minor drug offenses that are nonviolent. We need to do something about that. And I'm going to be a congresswoman that talks about changing the criminal process, fighting for criminal reform. We need to ensure that our drug policies are fair. And we need to start with the fact that there are many people of color, many of those who are vulnerable, who have to move forward with convictions that are truly unfair. And I'd like to see policies that perhaps overturn some of these convictions and focus on a process where those that are overpopulating our very crowded jails who have minor offenses can be set free to live a productive life.
All right. We got a few more questions coming in. A couple different people have asked about the election last year, the mayor's race last year. This is Catherine Franz in Wayne County, as well as Missy Ross. Both of them ask, how can you say you're the best candidate to defeat John Catco when you lost the Democratic city of Syracuse last year? It will be hard for a Democrat to win a congressional seat without support from the city.
I disagree. I believe that race was a huge success. No one, everyone looks at the end result, but the data is wonderful. The data was a true grassroots movement of many, many people who voted for the first time, many new immigrants that were engaged. So I'm very proud of that effort. Almost 10,000 people came out to vote for me and the narrative of being a voice for everyone. And this is a different race. This is a race where we know that this district leans left. Hillary Clinton won it by 4 points. There's no reason why we have a Republican incumbent sitting in this seat. And as I've mentioned before, I knew getting into the race would mean we'd put this district on the national radar. So it's different resources, different attention, national endorsements, and the real ability to mount a serious challenge against John Catco, and we're going to do it.
Talk to me about what you've learned between running a race in the city and running a race in a county like the a district like the 24th that goes all the way to Wayne County and includes a lot more just rural and suburban interests than running in the city.
Right. Well, that's truly why I believe I'm the most qualified candidate in this race. I'm battle tested. I've been through this particular process, and it really does help you not only build your movement, but get to know the issues and what people really want. I've been a regional director for a number of years in this community, so I know this district. I know Oswego, I know Cayuga County, and I'm enjoying meeting many, many people in Wayne County, hanging out at the American Legions and talking to folks that are part of organizations that I'm already a part of. But at the end of the day, this is a race that's different, but yet I've been able to use what I learned in the mayor's race, and much of it about being a voice for everyone. I am a Democrat, but I also care for everyone in this district, ensuring that they have economic security, that they have a future for themselves and for their children, and that we keep them out of harm's way. So my story is going to be out there for people to connect with, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what your affiliation is. We're all in this together, and that's how this race is different.
All right. Next question comes from Jeff Martin on Facebook. Jeff says, you mentioned your experience working across the aisle and clearly stated your opposition to several things. What are some things that the right has done that you agree with or that you could work with them across the aisle on?
Well, let's see. Donald Trump is talking about a national infrastructure program. I would love to support something like that. I don't know what he's going to do. He hasn't talked about a strategy, but I could certainly get behind that. That's jobs, investment. We need it in our streets here. He has also talked about bringing down the cost of prescription drugs. He made a huge announcement. Again, no plan, no strategy. I don't know what that includes, but I'd love to get behind that. Again, I have a mother, a 75-year-old mother, who's concerned about the high cost of prescription drugs, and I feel very connected to that issue. I want to fight for that issue for seniors and for anyone that's dependent on prescription drugs and needs help. So I could get behind that. Again, I'd like to see a plan.
All right. How do you envision working with a president like Donald Trump, who is very unique in his style and in his mannerisms? We've seen him attack individual Congress people, whether it's via Twitter or whatever it might be. So how do you envision kind of that working relationship?
Right. He's reckless. He's a train wreck, but he's an opportunist. I've worked with opportunists. He is about himself. And, often you need to work around folks like this. When you have a passion like I do for families, for people who work hard and can't get ahead, I'm going to support policies that protect people, that protect them and their way of life. And you've got to stand up to these folks. You've got to stand up. You've got to push back. But it helps when you have an army behind you. So that's why I'm in this, and that's why I'm also supporting colleagues from all over the country. But he's an opportunist, and we just have to stop focusing on the fact that he's a distraction and aim at this Republican Congress and how it's dismantling everything we've worked for. Everything we've worked for. I'm a beneficiary of policies like Head Start, food stamps, free college education. I know it works. And yet this Republican Congress, while we're all watching the tweeting of this president, is slowly putting all of that at risk. We need people who stand up to that. That's what I plan on doing as Congresswoman.
All right. I think we got time for just a couple more here. So I'll take one from Corey Schmidt in Syracuse. Says, would you push for and back a state excise tax on Wall Street to help fund initiatives to create public jobs in the inner cities? And I guess this is sort of follow-up to that, but maybe even help fund a gun buyback program for the city of Syracuse.
I'm going to support legislation and policies that are in the best interest of Central New York. You're absolutely right. We get taken advantage of, and we need to have policies that support people in this district. I'm going to support a Corporation Responsibility and Tax Protection Act bill that's out there, and what that ensures is that there's a levy taxed against large organizations like Walmart who benefit from public assistance because they pay their employees so little. These are the examples of policies I'm going to get behind. We have to get behind the working men and women of this district.
All right. We got this next question from several different people. We've talked about flipping the 24th district from red to blue.
Yes.
They want to know if you do not win the primary in 2 weeks and if Dana Balter is the candidate, would you campaign actively for her and would you support her in her run?
Well, if you know my work, I already have. That's what I was doing early on. I have a lot of respect for Dana Balter, and I am proud that there are 2 Democratic women in this race, and I am proud that in November, John Catco is going to have a challenger that's ready, prepared, and battle-tested. That's what we need, and I'm proud of this, and I'm going to support her if she wins, and I hope that she could do the same.
All right. I think that's as good a place to leave it as any. Thank you all for your questions. Juanita Perez Williams, thank you for sitting down with us this morning. The primary race is Tuesday, June 26th. That's exactly 2 weeks from today. It's open to all Democrats in the 24th District. Be sure to get out and vote, and check back later. We'll have a couple more stories about this race as we go. Juanita, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.